So Lawrence Okolie blasts out Lukasz Rozanski in the first round to become WBC World Bridgerweight Champion. Let's talk about it. Now, Okolie's last performance against Chris Smith, a losing effort, was absolutely atrocious. Not just because of the incessant holding, but because even his offense looked below par, and his punch resistance seemed shaky as well. Nobody wanted to see him fight again after that debacle. He apparently was targeting a rematch with Chris Smith. Presumably, Sky were not willing to put up the money because the first fight was so unwatchable. So he's moving up to Bridgerweight and he's challenging Lukasz Rozanski. Rozanski is a hyper-aggressive fighter, obviously hits hard, but he's in his late 30s and he's crude. Judging by the comments on my videos, a lot of my subscribers thought that Rozanski was going to knock Okolie out with that horrible Chris Smith performance still fresh in their memory. And personally, I didn't quite know what to expect. Anyway, he goes over there to Poland with his new trainer Joe Gallagher. His promoter Ben Shalom has done several co-promotions over in Poland, and this was another example of that. Okolie looked very confident at the weigh-in. Fight night comes around, ding ding, round one, and the first thing that's apparent is the enormous height and reach difference between the two. Lawrence Okolie is 6'5", Lukasz Rozanski is listed at 6'1" on BoxRec, but I can tell you for certain he's nowhere near 6'1". He's more like 5'10", 5'11", because Alan Babic is 6'1", and if you look at the face-off between Babic and Rozanski, it's clear that Babic is several inches taller. So Rozanski's about 5'10", 5'11". If you're that short and you're trying to get close to Lawrence Okolie, you better have some head movement, because if you don't have some head movement, he's going to time you on the way in. And with this extra weight at Bridgerweight, this is the 224-pound weight class, 24 pounds heavier than cruiserweight. Lawrence Okolie's obviously going to be stronger and be hitting harder than ever. It remains to be seen whether his punch resistance has also improved at Bridgerweight, but he certainly looked comfortable in there, and he exploited the very crude technique of Lukasz Rozanski, who didn't have many amateur fights. In fact, I'm not sure if he had any amateur fights. There was no head movement from him. The footwork was rudimentary. There wasn't many feints. Lawrence Okolie couldn't believe his luck. The guy was a sitting duck. He teed him up with the jab, walked him onto a right hand for the first knockdown. Rozanski went down heavy, got up very quick, which shows his inexperience. Again, even though he's pushing 40, doesn't have a lot of fights and hasn't been a lot of rounds. The action resumed with Rozanski still on wobbly legs. Okolie bludgeoned him to the canvas for the second knockdown. Rozanski was complaining about a punch behind the head, gets to his feet, and at this stage, the result looked inevitable. Rozanski just could not get out of the way of the shots. No head movement, primitive footwork, couldn't bridge the gap. A sitting duck for Okolie, as I say, who lined him up on the ropes. Rozanski was blocking the follow-ups, but then Lawrence Okolie switched it and came with an uppercut that spun Rozanski's head, and down he went again. He did make it to his feet, but the referee deemed that he was in no fit state to continue and waved it off with just a few seconds left in the first round. So there you go. The source, Lawrence Okolie, is back. He's now a two-weight world champion. Now, we obviously have to bear in mind that Bridgerweight is a new weight class, so the talent pool in that division isn't very big. Nevertheless, you got to start somewhere when you're on a comeback, and this is where Lawrence Okolie has started. It was a good performance, and it's kind of ironic because Rozanski actually picked Lawrence Okolie as a voluntary defense. Must be regretting that now. In the post-fight interview, Okolie said that he hated Joe Gallagher during training camp because Gallagher was pushing him so hard. And Gallagher's that type of personality, right? Eddie Hearn ended up damn near hating Joe Gallagher because he was pushing so hard for his fighters to get them the best deal. He obviously manages fighters as well as training them. Given how well that fight went, it'll be interesting to see whether Lawrence Okolie continues with Joe Gallagher. Gallagher said he'd like to see Okolie unify with the WBA champion at Bridgerweight because only two of the major sanctioning bodies actually recognize the weight class at the moment. So he wants to see him unify. Okolie apparently is going to have a mandatory for his WBC belt in Kevin Lorena, and that is also a very winnable fight for him. So we'll see how things play out. Let me know what you guys thought about his performance. Were you disappointed with Rozanski, or is this what you expected? I mean, on paper, and we know fights are not won or lost on paper, but on paper, Lawrence Okolie was supposed to win this fight, right? Because he's the guy with the amateur pedigree. He's fought better opposition than Rozanski has. You know, he fought a far more skilled Polish fighter for the WBO title at cruiserweight in Krzysztof Glowacki and beat him. So as I say, Okolie was supposed to do this, but he looked so bad against Chris Smith that people were wondering whether he was actually shot. Evidently, he isn't. So there you go. The source is back. Let's see how long he stays at Bridgerweight before moving up to heavyweight. Let me know what you guys think.